I'm a personal and business life coach and event planner, but my most important meaningful role in my life is a mother to a young boy and a young girl. Before I begin, I must make a disclaimer. This is a peaceful assembly. We do not condone any violence or aggression. We must park our differences and appreciate that this event is solely for the protection of our children. Article 42A in our Constitution affirms that, quote, the best interest of the child shall be paramount consideration. This is why we are standing here today. We must honor that in our Constitution. This event is hosted by 4 grassroots groups who receive no government funding. The Natural Women's Council, which I founded 1 year ago, the Irish Education Alliance, Lawyers for Justice Ireland, and Parents' Rights Alliance. We run collaborative campaigns because we know that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. In these 4 groups, we have expertise to launch effective campaigns that give all of you the tools to support the public, who are the ones who drive our campaigns forward. So what have we done so far? The first campaign we launched back on January 26th in the same place at the same time was the library campaign. Following the discovery of highly sexually explicit books that we found in the children's section of the library, we launched a library campaign to peacefully serve library staff with a notice of liability. Libraries have failed to safeguard our children, and the sexually explicit material and the content in those books is being blatantly ignored by the Garda, Children's Ombudsman, politicians, TUSLA, and everyone else that we've involved. So we also launched a curriculum campaign. We developed 2 letters for parents. One is a letter to the School Board of Management, and the second is a letter to opt your child out if indeed it makes it into schools. It is very important to note that there are several opt-out letters going around the country, but the letter that the Lawyers for Justice Ireland drafted for us specifies the topics that you do not want your child to be educated on. This is so critical as the gender ideology is weaved into many aspects of the curriculum, not just RSE and SPHE, which is by design. Can everyone hear me okay? And what I will say is we are here for children's rights, and children's rights are human rights. The library letter and the 2 curriculum letters can be found on IrishEducationAlliance.com. All you need to do is take 5 minutes of your day to copy the letter, paste it into an email, and send it to your Board of Management, and also the separate letter for your principal to say, we do not consent to gender ideology or a highly sexualized school curriculum for our children. We also emailed every school in Ireland about a month ago stating on behalf of the 4 groups that work together that we do not consent to this ideology and highly sexualized curriculum. We outline the risks that gender ideology will have on children. And the 4th action we did is we fundraised and we printed nearly 200,000 information leaflets with facts. We sent them by courier to every single county in Ireland. The campaign is still open. We have thousands of leaflets here today if you want to take a batch of 100 to get out to your own community. We just spent our last euro paying the printer and courier man, so if you wish to do a Go Get funding donation, I will keep that printer going all summer long. The 5th thing we're doing is we're in the process of doing some Freedom of Information Act requests to understand what discussions were had around this ideology and highly sexualized content coming into our children's schools. We want to know who's behind it, who's funding it, and what meeting minutes were discussed in those meetings, and we will. And once we get those that investigation done and get those findings done, we'll be more than happy to share with the public the names behind this, the funding, and who is putting this sexualized content in my child's school. What I will tell you is I was at a recent conference hosted by GenSpect. It was following my Swords Library event up in Fingal, County Fingal, and a librarian came up to me and said, I saw what you did in the libraries. I fully support you. The librarians do not want these highly sexual pornographic books for age 12. However, the librarian said they got a memo from the top down to say that when they discuss these issues in these books, they're not allowed to put them in the minutes. They're not allowed to document these conversations in their minutes. Shame on them.
Yeah. Shame on them! Shame on them! Shame on them! Shame on them!
Shame on them is right. So why are we here today? What is the purpose of the event? The purpose of the event, and regardless of what side you're on, whether you're standing with us for the children, standing over there or there, I want to convey the purpose of the event, and you might just take a moment to listen to see that we stand here with love. We don't stand here with hate. This is not against any community. This is against what's coming in front of our young children. So these changes are coming in September for junior cycle, but we still cling on to the hope and optimism that the schools may refuse to teach this to our children. Gender dysphoria is listed as a psychiatric condition in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual issued by the Psychiatric Association. I agree that a very small minority may suffer from this psychiatric condition. I agree that boys and girls suffering from gender dysphoria must get one-to-one support from experts and their parents.
Real care.
But what we do not consent to is teaching all children, as stated in the new SPHE textbook, that I quote, you can be a boy, girl, neither or both. Let me just repeat that. Your age 12 children are going to be taught in September on the little page with the genderbread person that they can be a boy, girl, neither or both, irrespective of the sex they were assigned at birth. So teaching children that they can choose a new gender, teaching children that they may be in the wrong body, which is gender dysphoria, is pushing a psychiatric condition onto children. Why would anybody want to push a psychiatric condition on our young children? Why? Why? What will our mental health crisis look like in 5 years if children are questioning one of the only certain things they have in their life? I have a 5 and an 8-year-old, and the only certain things in my little boy and girl's life is they know they're a boy or a girl, they know who their mommy or daddy is, and they know they have a sibling. Everything else in a young child's life is so uncertain. Why would we pull the carpet under that child's feet and make them question whether they're born in the wrong body? Nature makes no mistakes. Nature makes no mistakes. I would never confirm to my children they're born in the wrong body. No one is born perfect. But if my child came up to me when she's a young teenager watching TikTok and said, "Mommy, I think I'm fat and I don't want to eat," do you think I as a parent would say, "Oh, you're absolutely right, you're not fat, don't eat, and we'll get you that gastric bypass surgery"? Would I do that to a child? No. Then why would I confirm they're in the wrong body and pump them full of irreversible puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and remove their breast tissue or penis? Why? Why would I do that as a responsible parent? So what will you hear today? You'll be glad to hear that you won't hear me talking the whole time. I have a panel of expert speakers here today. I'm going to tell you who's speaking so you can be sure to stay for the full hour. We have people all around the country who are experts in their field here with us today. A primary school teacher will be educating us on the details of the new curriculum. an entrepreneur with a wide political knowledge, will talk about the war we are in and the NGO's influence on our children's education. A psychiatric nurse will speak about the mental health impact on children and share voices from a couple of students. A doctor is here today to discuss the risks of transgender ideology on children, both from a physical and a mental health perspective. And a lawyer will advise us on the school's obligation to safeguard children and the legal rights we have as parents. And a documentary film producer is here today to talk about the failure on our media in relation to their biased reporting of child protection issues. But most importantly, you will leave with solutions that will empower you. You are not helpless. Whether you're a mother, father, auntie, uncle, friend, or neighbor who cares about children, the power lies with you, granddad, grandma. We have a wide variety of people here today. You have the power. These are your children. We do not co-parent with the public servants behind me who are failing to protect our children. It is now my pleasure to turn it over to Linda Kennedy. She's a primary school teacher, co-founder of Teen Herd, co-founder of the Irish Education Alliance. She's on my Natural Women's Council. She's a mother to 2 girls and someone that I'm very happy to call my friend.
Hello everybody, welcome to everyone here today. I'm a mother of 2 teenagers and a primary school teacher. I am co-founder of the Irish Education Alliance, and our primary mission in our campaigns is to protect children and childhood. And that is all we wish to do. The updated SPHE curriculum that includes lessons on gender ideology and pornography is due to start this September for the junior cycle, for the senior cycle in September 25, and then primary schools in September 26. Gender identity, that gender is boy, girl, neither or both, is already being taught to 6th classes as part of the Busy Bodies programme from the HSC. If the department get their way, gender identity ideology will be taught to junior infants. A boy who may like to play with dolls, or a girl who may like to play with toy cars, may be brainwashed to think they were born in the wrong body. This may lead to trauma and confusion. We have to stop this now. Today I will speak about the SPHE curriculum changes, but you can read in detail the learning outcomes on the NCCA website. Also, this flyer at the back here, which I'm sure you've all seen, summarises these changes. Parents, you need to do your homework and study these changes. You can also visit our website, irisheducationalliance.com, for the opt-out letter and the letter asking the Board of Management to opt out, as even if your child is not attending the class, he or she may hear about it anyway. It is a parent's right to opt their child out, but we encourage parents to email the Board of Management letter and also set up a meeting with the principal to outline your concerns. Be mindful, the 5 learning outcomes in this updated SPHE curriculum are spread out throughout the curriculum and other subjects, example English literature, making it very difficult to opt out. This is their plan. Hence, schools and teachers must opt out.
Yes.
Sorry, I've lost my speech. Okay. I need somebody to. You up here, Andrew? Yeah. Because they're blowing away. Just put your hand there.
We love a windy day.
Okay, just put your hand there. Maybe just turn it when I get to the next. Okay, thank you. Okay. So, the following is from an SPHE teacher and coordinator who cannot be with us here today. The new SPHE curriculum was signed off in May 2023 and the NCCA are the body responsible for drafting this. Teachers must now decide whether they are going to teach these learning outcomes, as they raise many moral and ethical questions for them. Firstly, let's look at learning outcome 1.4. Teaching gender identity is defined by the NCCA as a person's felt internal and individual experience of gender, which may or may not correspond with the sex registered at birth. This is a belief system, an ideology, and is categorically false. To teach gender identity ideology, the NCCA has made available to teachers an information leaflet to help teachers deliver and affirm these learning outcomes. I use the word affirm as this is the word used by the NCCA in their guidance to teachers. This means a teacher can tell a young person who may feel uncomfortable in their gender that they could choose to identify as a different gender. This is disgraceful. This is a safeguarding issue. This affirmation guidance given by the department is very dangerous. This guidance leaflet acknowledges that teachers play a powerful role in influencing how young people feel about their gender. It tells teachers to give, and I quote, young people the opportunity and space to develop unique identities in environments of support and affirmation. What is going on here? How is this helping young people to understand themselves? Gender identity is also in Learning Outcomes 3.6. The NCCA want teachers to, and I quote again, inform teachers that there are different ways of experiencing and expressing our gender. And it is important to keep in mind that one's gender can change over time. This is extremely dangerous. Parents need to wake up to what is happening here. Your child has been exposed to very dangerous untruths. Good side. Yeah. Teachers are aware that children and teenagers often struggle with changes that happen to them during puberty. They may feel uncomfortable with their bodies and suffer from lack of self-confidence. Through the proposed curriculum, they will be taught that rather than learning to be comfortable with who they are and the biological sex they were born with, they should question whether they should choose to identify as a different gender. Do you want that for your child or grandchild? Gender dysphoria is listed as a psychiatric condition by medical authorities. Students who have this condition need support and medical attention from professional people who are qualified to give these students the best possible care. Teachers are not qualified to affirm a young person's gender discomfort as requested by the NCCA. Why is the NCCA requesting this? Is it for the benefit of the big pharmaceutical companies such as AbbVie, who make puberty blockers, and coincidentally, whose Director of Market Access and Stakeholder Relations Ireland is Paul Hickey, husband to Minister for Justice Helen McEntee? As stated by many psychotherapists, gender affirmation does not promote the well-being of students. Quote, to affirm a child in the wrong body can do great harm and can start them on the road to medically transitioning. A new study by Drs. Michael Bailey and Suzanne Diaz examines the recent epidemic of teenagers and young adults identifying as transgender has been published, and the findings strongly indicate that social contagion is a factor in this new phenomenon. Teaching gender identity learning outcomes 1.4 and 3.6 will lead to social contagion as stated in the above study. Are teachers legally obliged to teach a curriculum where research shows will cause harm to students? Is it ethical and morally correct for teachers to teach gender identity affirmation as requested to do so by the NCCA? Under Schedule 1, Section 21B of the Children First Act 2015, the school is under a statutory obligation to safeguard pupils from exposure to harm. The legal duty of care as a school under Section 9D of the Education Act 1998 is to promote the moral, spiritual and social and personal development of students and provide health education for them in consultation with their parents having regards to the characteristic spirit of the school. The gender identity content does not promote these values. This is stated by leading experts and by evidence-based research which shows that gender identity is harmful, very harmful to children. This ideology is also contrary to Christian ethos, and children with learning difficulties are especially vulnerable to this ideology. Evidence from the recent Tavistock scandal showed the high percentage of autistic children that received gender-affirming care. The NCCA received negative media attention, you're probably aware of this, during the year for many reasons. It refused input from the Catholic Secondary Schools Parents Association, which represents 48% of secondary schools, and also the Muslim Council of Ireland. Also, the National Parents Council Post-Primary, represented by May Fanning, was a member of this SPHE Curriculum Development Group, but did not represent Catholic secondary schools in any meaningful way. The SPHE Development Group also included LGBTQ advocates and educationalists. In May of this year, the NCCA was forced to take down from their listed resources in the SPHE Toolkit a teaching resource called This Book is Gay by Juno Dawson. The book is has pornographic material in it and inappropriate advice to young people regarding a dating app called Grindr for 18-plus-year-olds. And that was on the NCCA curriculum website for primary and secondary schools. During the consultation stage of the draft SPHE curriculum, which took place from July 1822 to October 1822, over 4,000 parents and 100 teachers submitted their views regarding this draft. Under a freedom of information requested by a former solicitor, the NCCA are refusing to disclose the nature of these submissions. I wonder why. The curriculum in Learning Outcome 3.1 will also discuss the influence of popular culture and the online world in particular, the influence of pornography on young people's understanding, expectations and social norms in relation to sexual expression. I am very concerned about how this topic in the classroom can be approached that is in keeping with the Christian ethos and is mindful of the age appropriateness for children. I was very disheartened to hear teacher Owen Cleary speak about the importance of children being porn literate on RT programme Up Front with Katie Hannon in February. You might have seen it, with Minister Joseph Madigan and Dr. Kate Dawson on the panel, where they had a discussion about teaching pornography in schools. Dr. Kate Dawson, NUIG sex educator, is co-author of the Porn Report 2018, which stated that it's healthy and okay to watch the porn you want. Dr. Siobhan O'Higgins was also part of the NUIG active consent team, was a member of the NCCA SPHE development group. Pornography is a huge issue with our young people, but ethical porn, as it is sometimes described, is not the approach to take. I have taken a line from the guidance material given by the NCCA to help teachers deliver this learning outcome, which I find is not appropriate instruction and is not in line with the moral and spiritual development of the child. The NCCA want teachers to begin by helping students to reflect on their own values and expectations of sexual relationships and what they consider to be the features of a healthy adult sexual experience. My question is, why is the NCCA asking 12 to 15-year-olds to reflect on adult sexual experiences when the legal age for sexual intercourse is 17 years? I mean, that is the most important question here today. Why? Why? Why are they needing to teach children about this? For the NCCA to promote sexual expectations among 12 to 15-year-olds is very disturbing, as this may put pressure on children to have sexual experiences. What resources will the NCCA be providing to teach this learning outcome? How will these resources be presented? Will it be animated cartoon figures that will present different sexual situations? We read in the media the inappropriateness of a reading resource, This Book is Gay, presented by the NCCA that had to be removed, as mentioned earlier. We cannot trust them. The political party Aim To is trying to protect our children from online pornography, and they've introduced the Protection of Children from Online Pornography Bill, aiming to outlaw explicit content for children. However, the government rejected supporting the bill's progress in the Dáil, which is very disappointing. Why is the government not supporting this bill? Why aren't they trying to regulate the multi-million porn industry and therefore protect children from watching porn that may harm them greatly? Why? In conclusion, I thank you for being here today. Teachers need to show moral conscience and not teach these learning outcomes. They need to opt out. They need to opt out. 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 Yeah. Okay, I'm really sorry for going on so long, but I'm actually representing two teachers today who couldn't be here with us. The second teacher, you might know him, is Barad Roshta, and he's speaking from the aspect of being a primary school teacher. So now that you know, not too long now, so now that you know how they intend on indoctrinating and sexualising your children, what can we do as parents and as teachers? For a start, you can use their own rules and regulations against them. It has already been highlighted here today how gender dysphoria has been designated a mental illness, how gender affirmation has been highlighted by psychotherapists as being potentially harmful to children who suffer from this mental illness. Therefore, it is incumbent upon us as parents and teachers to inform schools that they are in breach of Article 3, Section 1 of the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, which states that in all actions concerning children, the best interest of the child will be a primary consideration. It is up to you to inform your child's school about this. Don't assume that someone is going to do it for you. You have also heard today that how the NCCA has refused to reveal the content of submissions from concerned parents and religious groups, and how they were excluded from consultations in the first instance, with precedence of input being given to NGOs. Therefore, again, it is your job as a parent and or a teacher to inform the school that they are in breach of Section 9D of the Education Act of 1998, which states what I stated previously. I won't say it again. Furthermore, they are in breach of Section 30, subsection 2E, which states that the minister should not require any student to attend instruction in any subject which is contrary to the conscience of the parent of the student. This is a child protection issue. It has always been a child protection issue, and it will always be a child protection issue until ideology protect childhood, 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 protect childhood. Issue until ideologies, indoctrination and the sexualisation of our children is removed from schools and sexual education is left to the primary educators as per the Constitution, the parents of Ireland. The Children First Act was enacted for that very reason, to protect children. Use it. Again, don't assume that someone is going to do it for you. Which brings me to teachers. As all teachers know, they are statutorily mandated to report abuse or suspected abuse of a child. Exposure to these ideologies and pornography are clearly stated examples of abuse in the Children's First Act. For example, showing sexually explicit material to children. And the other topic here, of course, is the libraries, which not coincidentally has happened alongside this curriculum coming into schools. The sexually explicit and pornographic books in the libraries, that is no accident. As a teacher, are you going to sit back quietly and live in fear of speaking out? Are you going to renege on your obligation as a teacher to report this abuse? Will you fall into line so that you don't stand out from the rest of the herd? Ireland has a history of letting its children down badly. Are you as a teacher going to continue this trend by living in fear? Or will you be courageous and speak up for the children under your care? Teachers, it is time to act now. There is no reason to be fearful. Step into your sovereignty. You were born sovereign. You and you alone are the author, or the authority. Use your constitution to remind schools, board of management and the Department of Education of your authority as the parent and individual. Use whatever constitution you wish, the 1919 or the 1937. Remind them that under the 1919 Sovereign Constitution, that all authority in Ireland and all powers of government are derived solely under God from the people of Ireland. These powers are inherent in the people alone by virtue of their sovereignty. Nothing will change until enough people withdraw their consent, and that is all they have, our consent. Their imagined authority hangs by a thread. That thread is our consent. In the meantime, you can step into your sovereignty, step into your power, and protect your children. Protect childhood. Protect childhood. Protect childhood. Protect childhood. Protect childhood. Thank you everybody for listening today. I wish you well.
Thank you very much, Linda, for all that information. Now, we did ask that everybody, our side here and across the road, I did ask the courtesy that you would listen to what our concerns are. And I struggle to understand. I cannot get my head around it. And I'd like to think I'm an educated woman. I don't understand how children's rights and protection infringes on anybody's rights. What? How is that so? The world has gone mad. Okay. Now I'm going to introduce it over to Natalie Robisky, who is a psychiatric nurse, and she's going to read. She's going to read the. Oh, sorry, you're next. Yeah, sorry, you're not. He's not identifying as Natalie. Sorry. I'm going to introduce it over to Andrew Kelly, who is a member of the Parents' Rights Alliance, an entrepreneur, and very savvy in the political freedom field. So over to you, Andrew.
Thank you, Yana. Thank you very much indeed. Today I am identifying as Andrew Kelly. My expertise, ladies and gentlemen, is as an entrepreneur, self-employed small business person. My other field is in history, modern history, specifically 20th century history, which has seen its huge amounts of indoctrination and political violence, which we do not want to return to. In the past, Ireland has faced many dark days when foreign agents sought to destroy our way of life using coercion and tyranny. Now, we all thought those days were gone. We thought 100 years ago Irish men and Irish women banished those agents from our land. However, today we find that these elements of coercion and tyranny are returning. The difference today is that the agents of these actions are now domestic and not foreign. These people, they serve foreign masters. They seek to destroy their own people. One of the actions we're talking about today is the compulsory introduction of this SPHE so-called curriculum, which seeks to pervert and indoctrinate our children. Let us be under no illusions, people. This policy is designed for one thing and one thing only, to cause chaos. It seeks to destroy the minds and bodies of our children. Ireland's greatest resource are her people. The most valuable aspect of that are our children. They are our hope, our potential. They are our future. Any threat to our children is an existential threat to us all. And we must all resist it with every fibre of our being. This so-called sex education policy is nothing of the sort. It's a left-wing ideology whose real purpose is the destruction of our society and the stability of our developing children. It is nothing less than a Trojan horse introduced into young lives when they are most vulnerable and susceptible. It is comprised of sexual perversion and pseudoscience. Transgenderism has no basis in biology. It has no basis in science. And let me tell you for a fact, transgenderism has no basis in history. It simply does not exist. It is nothing less than a ruse which purports to be benign and inclusive, taking advantage of our better nature as humans who wish our fellow man well. The road to hell, as my father used to say, is paved with good intentions. We have no intention of going down this road. The unsettling aspect of all of this, ladies and gentlemen, my friends, are the agents of this crime against Irish people are no less than the elected representatives entrusted to safeguard our interests. We unfortunately live in interesting times, as our Chinese friends would say, where we find our government rules against the wishes and best interests of its people. We have on numerous occasions attempted to engage with Norma Foley. We have submitted thousands of signatures from parents who oppose this policy. We have sought face-to-face engagement with her. We have sought to meet this Irish minister on a one-to-one basis. Let me tell you now, she did not listen, she is not listening, and she will not listen. Like her party leader, Micheál Martin, God save us, she does not believe in the sovereignty of the Irish people. He is on record as saying that very thing. She serves a different master and takes advice from left-wing ideologues like Cecilia Gavigan and Catherine Cross, LGBTQ+, etc., transgender advocates who are involved in the indoctrination of our children through their membership of the Curriculum Development Group. They oversaw the sex education programs. Their way of operating is quite simple. Work behind the scenes and, I quote, don't tell the parents as they might object. That is their philosophy. That is their policy. That is what they believe. You as parents have no right to any of this information about your very own children, your flesh and blood. Cecilia Gavin attended that conference and she was a speaker at the Queering the Curriculum conference in October 2019. So you see, my friends, that very quote, don't tell the parents they might object, this is the approach that Norma Foley has taken to the creation of this new curriculum. She has no intentions of listening to parents, to common sense, or to the Irish people in general. She does not care. The sole representative of the parents on the Curriculum Development Group is Catherine Cross of the National Parents Council, who herself is a transgender advocate for TENE, the Transgender Equality Network of Ireland. So is it any wonder that she has come to these conclusions and put this curriculum together for our children? What other outcome could we face given the makeup of the advisory groups that she is listening to? Not only is she listening to these advisory groups, we also have our friends in the NGO community. 3,000 NGOs with 6.5 billion euros of taxpayers' money every year going to these individuals. It is an outrage. We now have government of NGO, for NGO, by NGO. The ideology which they want to infuse into our children is, and I quote, "Gender identity is about how we think of ourselves as a boy or a girl, both or neither, irrespective of the sex you were assigned at birth." This ridiculous and confusing message was inserted into the primary school busybodies program. We are talking 4-year-olds to 12-year-olds here. This is an outrageous attack on our children and a subversion of the rights of parents. It shows how hollow Norma Foley's pledge was that she would respect our wishes. It was a lie, and it was a lie written by her activists or by herself. Let's be clear, and I want to speak to our friends across the road here as well. LGBTQ children and children suffering from gender identity dysphoria should be treated with the greatest respect and care. I say to our friends across the road, we do not say that you should not expose your children to this ideology and this harm, but why would you ask us to expose our children to it as well? We are here for your rights as well, your right of choice, your right as parents. How could you possibly be against us? Bizarre in the extreme, is it not? Norma Foley is not the architect of these outrageous policies. She is not the mastermind of some elaborate conspiracy. That is beyond her capabilities. She is simply the monkey. She is not the organ grinder. She does as she is told in her very expensive clothes and with her very empty disposition. With a few exceptions, this house behind us here is filled with compliant non-entities who serve a global agenda to destroy Irish, Christian and Western culture. That is their agenda. They want your way of life, ladies and gentlemen. We must ask ourselves why this government feels the need to make this policy compulsory. Why does it need to be compulsory? Why would it have to be? If this policy were benign and educational and of value to our children, why would we oppose it? The answer to that question is that this is an ideological war and they want to brainwash your children. We have seen this before in history. The Hitler Youth, the Red Guard under Chairman Mao. We've also seen it in our distant past where children are taken as hostages to ensure the compliance of their parents. This is a latter-day version of that. Your children are taken as hostages to ensure your compliance. They will not get our children, and they will not get our compliance. In the past, certain parties, okay, in this house here, represented a semblance of Christian conservatism and sought to maintain certain standards. We all know who those parties are. We've all voted for them in the past. I am guilty too. Those days are gone, my friends. People who vote for these parties today are voting for nostalgia. They are not voting for policy. All of the parties, except for a few individual TDs, are now left-wing globalists. They could in fact form one major party as there is no difference in policy among the whole lot of them. We are in need of a new departure, but that's for a different day. The parties you think you were voting for, they no longer exist. They've been subverted by global forces and their TDs care nothing for the Irish people, as evidenced by the behaviour of Norma Foley. It is vital that Minister Foley gives parents the right to opt out their children from the new sex education classes. She has stated before that she fully respects the rights of parents who draw their children from these classes. We call on Norma Foley today to honour that commitment and make this course a standalone subject so that parents can withdraw their children from these classes. Minister for Education, Joe McHugh, pledged that he would do so. He said they would not impose the new sex education curriculum if it conflicted with the ethos of Catholic or religious schools. And this is an important point. This is not just a Catholic issue. Our Protestant brethren and our Muslim brethren, they will object to this as much as we will. And even non-religious individuals. You do not have to be an Irish Catholic. I've spoken with our friend here, Normand, from Poland. I have Romanian friends, I have Chinese friends, I have Turkish friends, and they all object to this nonsense and this ideology. We all stand together. People will try to portray us as right-wing Catholic nuts. Let them. We care not, because right is on our side, and the majority people are on our side. The people, and especially the parents of Ireland, are not going to accept this. The rights of parents are paramount in this matter, and the rights of schools to teach in accordance with their ethos and their values are also paramount. They're being completely ignored in this ideological-driven new sex education curriculum. We have the Constitution on our side. Legality is on our side, ladies and gentlemen, and we must use that to the fullest extent. What are we going to do? There are a few things we can do. We can write to the principal and board of management of your schools objecting to the new junior cycle. We can opt out, send a letter to your school withdrawing your child from their classes. And remember this, the school could be legally liable if they force your child into these classes, because against your wishes and against the welfare of that child. I don't think many of them will want to go there. We must link up together, my friends, all of us, our Polish friends, our Muslim friends, our American friends. There are no Irish people here, there are no Muslim or Polish people here. There are just concerned parents and concerned citizens of Europe and the Western world whose way of life and families are under threat. So we all stand together. We are one, and they cannot defeat us while we are one. Write to your local TD. Tell them, okay, that you are not going to stand for this any longer. Our Parents' Rights Alliance website has an opt-out template which you can download. Please avail of that. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, 100 years ago, a few men and women took to the streets in Dublin in 1916. The odds were against them. They made huge sacrifices of their own lives, but in the end, they achieved their goal and their objective. We merely stand to listen to some insults and demonization and lies. But listen, the weapons on our side are amazing. We have truth on our side. We have common sense on our side. We have science on our side. And we have love on our side, as Linda says. She's absolutely correct. Even for our friends across the road, whom, God willing, they will see sense that we wish to protect their children as well as our own. All of our children are valuable. There is nothing more valuable in the universe than our children. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Natalie. Just joking. Okay. Thank you all. We just have a couple more speeches to go. It's my pleasure to introduce now Natalie Robisky. She's a psychiatric nurse, and we have a written statement that came in from a psychotherapist who does work with children. And you may have seen the interview I did on my podcast with Natalie. She was the one that exposed HPRA, that they are neglecting to remove this book from the libraries. This book in age 12 libraries teaches children how to order hormones online, and there's a picture in the book which shows how to inject the hormones into those innocent age 12 bodies. Natalie did a great job uncovering dismissed. She met with the doctors of HPRA, but guess what? They dismissed it. Sorry, kids can order hormones online and pump themselves up. Well done, Natalie. Natalie's also a singer, but she won't be singing today.
Hi everybody, you're going to bear with me. I am not a public speaker, so I may waffle my way a little bit through this. So, my name is Natalie. I'm a clinical nurse manager in psychiatry. I qualified in 2007 and have worked with a vast range of patients and their families over the years. I am greatly concerned for the mental health and well-being of our children, due to the inclusion of gender ideology being taught as fact within the SPHE curriculum in schools. As many parents are sadly already too familiar with the current mental health crisis amongst our children, with severe lack of resources and beyond acceptable waiting lists. This will only add to the need for children to seek support from a poorly functioning mental health service. Children look to adults, parents, grandparents and teachers to guide them in what is right and wrong, develop their sense of self, self-worth and belonging. Teaching them to question their gender as a first and foremost conclusion of what may be distress, secondary to a myriad of other mental health issues, is not only negligent, it places them on a path of further confusion. Since becoming a mother and seeing my beautiful daughter grow and develop, I am even more fearful for her future. We all need to speak up for our children. Enough of staying silent. Enough of hatred. This is not hatred, this is love for our youth. 76% of LGBT students are what? Do not feel safe. What about the students who are not LGBT? They also do not feel safe to speak their minds, to not agree. As a nurse, we care for people of all race, all religion, culture, without judgment. There is no judgment here. This is not hate. This is coming from a place of love. This is not transphobia. This is love. For all the detransitioners, for all the children who feel lost and are finding solace in gender ideology, this is love. We are supposed to protect and safeguard you from all harm. To do no harm. This is love. Today I'm going to read a statement sent to us from a psychotherapist, Helen Gibson, who sadly could not be with us today. Yes, trans rights do matter. All of our rights matter. It is not us versus them. This is about our children. We are living in exceptional times. I am unable to say that that will definitely happen due to the agendas at play. Because as far as I am aware, there has never been this mass global psychological attack upon our species. There have been pockets of experiments in other countries, more so with the medical interventions. It must be emphasised that gender reassignment is a medical intervention. It creates a lifelong customer for the pharmaceutical industry. On a psychological level, the confusion and separation that is being caused by the current gender ideology may have a severe detrimental effect upon our society. The attack upon identity, upon the very nature of our species, male, female, is a fundamental tool being utilised to create a confused nation. Who we are, why we are here, are questions almost all of us have asked ourselves at some point in our life experience. Unfortunately, these normal explorations of self and place within the world are being perverted. Schools historically taught about sex. They did not promote any specific ideology about what type of sex, gender one may experience in life. This was left for everyone to explore at their own time and pace. The indoctrination of our children is being able to choose their gender is, as you know, dangerous. Children need to play. They use play as a way of exploring and making sense of their world. When a 4-year-old girl says, "I want to be a boy," she wants to explore what it would be like to be a boy. She wants to play and be the same. By making a desire to play something that will become set, will stifle expression and exploration of self. The subliminal message will be given not to speak, not to say certain things, as the consequences may be dire. This will lead to adverse ideas of self and society, which will manifest as disease in both mind and body, again creating customers for pharmaceuticals. When children enter puberty, their physiologically and psychology are altering, hormones within the body become activated, and again they need space to explore who they are and who they want to be. This space is being restricted. Being a teenager is stressful and confusing enough without being denied the opportunity to explore. I am unable to say with any certainty the exact issues that will be experienced. We have already seen the explosion of anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation, suicide and gender dysphoria in our young, to name but a few. I am confident that new issues and labels will be created to provide further customers within the medicalisation of our lives. There have also been increases in aggravation in parent-child relationships, the use of puberty blockers and transitioning. The health of the child affects the health of the parent and those around them. We are facing an unprecedented increase in mental health issues. For many, this is a trip to the doctors, followed by pharmaceutical intervention. Unfortunately, many within the psychological are not speaking out about the catastrophe that is with us, instead choosing to engage with it. Many are heavily invested and are seeing increases in their waiting rooms. It makes little sense to me, and I have decided to focus my energies on empowering people. We are required to address what is happening. How each decides to do this is up to them. Jana and the Natural Women's Council are doing exceptional work and making strides in ensuring that inappropriate material is no longer freely available to our children in libraries without parental consent. The People's Health Alliance are going from strength to strength, a UK initiative that has taken off around the globe with hubs in Dublin, Wicklow, Wexford and Kildare. Each hub is self-led on a community level, with communities reclaiming their health with information and choice. This is where I have placed much of my energy. The creation of First Assist Being Well, a mental health awareness course which is suitable for age 14 up. There are two main aims of First Assist Being Well: to normalise living, to move away from the weaponisation of how we live, empowering each to make informed choices. Participants will grow in confidence, knowledge and skills to support someone who may be struggling with their psychological health. Ensuring that we are prepared for the increases in adverse psychological events with those around us is vital. The DSM, the Diagnostic Statistical Manual, which is the Bible for psychiatry, is constantly being added and taken away from. In recent years, grief and racism have been added. Mental health legislation gives unprecedented powers to restrict our behaviours, all areas of our lives, have been attacked. Confidence to take care of ourselves and others is imperative. I believe that encouraging people to reclaim their health, education and life in general will be one of the most effective ways that we can come through this. I encourage you to read legislation around mental health. On the surface it can appear quite benign, but it isn't. To be honest, I would suggest that it is time for us to take our children out of these indoctrination centres, once known as schools. To return to educating our children, to allow them to play. Our planet and our species will benefit from this. Thank you, Helen Gibson. Wonderful, wonderful words from Helen. And as a psychiatric nurse, I agree with every single one of them. We need to protect our children's mental health. They are our future. Without them, we do not have a future. If we continue down the path of medicalisation, labelling, instead of letting our children just be children, what is their future going to be like if we are pumping them full of puberty blockers, medications, surgery? What is their future going to be like? Why are we not hearing the stories, hundreds of stories from detransitioners who made a mistake, who were pushed down this path? Why are we not hearing their stories? What future do our children have if they are left infertile, with increased suicidal ideation because they made the wrong decision, because they were not guided appropriately to make the right decision? Leave the children be children. We do not need schools pushing our children down a path they do not need to be put on. Protect our children. Thank you.
Sure you don't want to sing, Natalie? Natalie was singing in my garden at the weekend. She's an amazing singer, but I won't put her on the spot. Just to let everyone know, I did invite every single TD, minister, senator who's behind us. I happen to see Maddie McGrath, who has come to a few of our events. Maddie, would you like to say a couple words? We'll give you, is 5 minutes all right? Yeah, all right. We see what Maddie has.
Well, good. I'm delighted to be here today, and thanks for the invitation. I want to also, I'm joined by my colleague Michael Collins, TD, and Deputy Carol Nolan from Offaly. So look, for evil to prosper, good men and women stay quiet. So I am really proud of you today to have come here in such large numbers to express your feelings of not being represented in this house behind me here today. Leave our children alone. The old Irish adage, Mulla Noige, aga Chucky Cheed. You praise and nurture the young and they will come and be good citizens of this country. The attack, the sustained attack, and of course we have RTE leading it. And we see what they are now in tatters on the floor. So we stand and we fight and we'll reclaim Ireland for our children, our grandchildren and our people. And to hell with Helen McEntee and her hate speech legislation. They want us all to be silenced, but you're not being silenced, you're not being shouted down either today, and I'm proud of you, and I will represent you with Michael Collins and Carol Nolan and others in the rural independence in Dáil Éireann. It's our duty. So I thank you from the bottom of my heart for being so caring about the children, and the speakers have alluded to there, plenty of experts, psychologists. We have no mental health services, we have no CAMS team in South Tipperary, where I come from. Yet we have money for all this diatribe agenda, what I call it, pushing downright evil, and Satan is behind this agenda. As far as I'm concerned, it's satanic, and I won't accept it while there's blood in my body and advice, a tongue in my mouth to speak. Going to meet a Mahagam Kalair and continue the fight, and we will succeed. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Hearing from someone who works behind me, who's on our side to support childhood, gives me a glimmer of hope. So thank you, Maddie. You've been to a few of our events. We always see you there. Thank you very much. The next person up to speak is Dr. Anne McCloskey. I saw her over there. And we reached out to Anne to speak today because Dr. McCloskey has been speaking out over the last several years to protect our children. She's been one of the bravest women I know. We admire her so much, and we're delighted she drove all the way down and this morning from Derry to speak about the risk to our children. So you're very welcome. Thank you so much.
Well, I want you by your clear, because you were tashiv. Stress you back all again. Come in, do's and I, in my house who earn statue shows Reg Leinster. It's not the first time I've been in this stage outside Leinster House, and it probably won't be the last, because the people in there are a government of occupation. They are not our government. With a few honourable exceptions. Thank you, Matty and Michael. So I tried to write a speech coming down this morning on the bus, but it was very bumpy, and then it rained, so I'm going to have to wing it. I am a medical doctor, but more importantly, I'm a mother and I'm a grandmother. Those are the roles that matter most to me in my life. And as I know that parents of young children will go to hell and back to save those children and to protect them and to give them the best life possible. It's important that we understand that none of this is an accident. There has been a program, a globalist program, which is now probably going into its second century, to make sure that our young people are intellectually impoverished, that they are vacuous, that they are not allowed to they're not allowed to believe that there are absolute truths. Instead, everything is fluid, everything is to be questioned. There is no knowledge. There is just what you feel like. And I really hope it works out for them. I am proud to stand here as an advocate for children, as someone who doesn't believe in trans rights, who doesn't believe in trans ideology. I am an adult human female, and with very, very few biological exceptions, and these are medical mishaps, children in the womb, their gender is decided at the time of conception. Now, people can rant and rave and say that's incorrect. It's feeding the trans beast is like giving children with anorexia slimming tablets. Feeding the trans beast is like giving people who are morbidly obese more food. It's a mental health disorder, and it needs to be regarded as such. These people require support and help, and unfortunately we can see that very many of people with gender dysphoria, be they as children, adolescents, and obviously because of the indoctrination which is happening in our schools, in libraries and in the media, Disney, the films, all of it, we can see that the age of these people who no longer feel comfortable in their own bodies is getting lower. But this should be treated as yet another of the traumas that adolescents go through. Very many of these children have autistic disorder on the spectrum, the autistic spectrum. Very many of them come from troubled backgrounds. Very many of them have parents who have a condition and put upon their children a condition called Munchausen syndrome by proxy, where we see these poor children being paraded like some sort of exhibits, and their parents bringing them into places where they can be brutalized and subjected to stuff which is absolutely corrosive to their small minds. As I've said, this is a global destruction of our civilization, of our country, of our culture, of our faith, and we must see it as that. These people across the road are not the enemies. It's the bankers and billionaires who fund this whole filthy agenda who are the enemy. And we do get caught up, and people look over and say, you know, these are the problem, these are the victims. The intellectual bankruptcy, the three-word phrases, the vacuous thoughts, the stupidity. If these were happy, well-adjusted people, they'd be doing something different today than howling at the moon behind a flag that changes every week. Our children in school are not being taught to read and write. They're not being taught to think critically. There are no such things as debating societies anymore or book clubs. What they're being told is to be activists. The person who writes our educational programs in the universities now is called Paulo Freire. He's a Marxist from Central America, and he teaches children his educational philosophy is that we are not being taught the tools which require us to be healthy and mature people, but we're turned into activists, so that you can waste your time standing in a corner howling meaningless platitudes whenever people are here trying to protect children. Now, I am a doctor, and I've been reading quite a bit about the actual surgery that is the fruition, I suppose, of this whole trans movement. The complications are truly horrendous. Our young people, many of them who have mental health issues, are ending up with six-figure debts for mutilating cosmetic surgery. That's what it is. When you get a bit of your arm fashioned into an appendage that doesn't work, that cannot give you or anybody else pleasure, that cannot fulfill the function for which it was created, which is procreation, when you do that to yourself, you are a victim. It's not empowering. And our children, when they are able to understand these things, will learn that, I'm quite sure. But, so the enemy, as I say, is not the people who are duped by this ideology, by the insatiable greed of Big Pharma, by the surgeons, by the people who want to push them into even further debt. The students of today qualify with degrees which are utterly useless to them or anybody else. They come out with tens of thousands of pounds of student debt. They are shackled with a mortgage or with exorbitant rents. This is all done on purpose to make us into slaves. So I'm proud to stand with you today. I don't make any apology. I'm a conspiracy theorist. I'm a proud anti-vaxxer. I'm a rebel. And I love the people of Ireland, and I will go to jail and hell and back, and to my death if necessary, to protect our children. Grimina mai hagad.
It's nice to have a doctor on this soil who speaks up against what is harming children. So thanks, Dr. McCluskey, for that. Thank you so much. And it doesn't come without risk, and it doesn't come without abuse. But the love we have for our children is stronger than any abuse or label or shouting or whistling that we might get. The next lady's coming up on stage. I just have to say an enormous thank you. These two ladies work. I don't think they sleep. They have parents they care for, children to care for, businesses and law firms to run, and they do all of the work for all of our groups on a pro bono basis. The Lawyers for Justice Ireland, yes, they have faces even though they're 24/7 working on their computers at night, all night. Many of you saw the RTE hit piece done on me for organizing these violent, aggressive thug protests, right, like today, yeah? So, Jackie, God love her, stayed up until 3:30 in the morning helping me type an 8-page letter. These ladies are unbelievable, and we're so grateful they're in our Natural Women's Council supporting all of our groups. So, Jackie and Siobhan. might need to go higher because you're taller than the last couple of us. So.
How are y'all? It's great to be in Dublin. It's just a shame that we have to do this, be outside here doing this. We're just down here. We want to thank you all, first of all, for all your efforts in sharing our posts. We wouldn't be able to help anyone if you guys didn't share the stuff and push back against this, because we can only provide the tools. Now, this is not, as many of you know, anything about phobia. These people that are standing accusing all of us of being transphobic, being homophobic, that's just an absolute lie. This is about children, and I would like at this point to mention the main thing here, which is Article 42A of the Constitution, which makes it very clear that all proceedings, God bless you, all proceedings in relation to children must have the best interests of children as a paramount consideration. It's in the heart of any court proceedings, anything in relation to children in this country, and that is what this is about. And also, I'd like to mention Section 9 of the Education Act, in which the state has an absolute express responsibility to consult with parents in relation to what is taught for children. We have to remember that children are at various degrees of emotional, psychological, physical development, even although they're the same age as people in their class. Parents know best as to when these things should be taught to children, not a school, a crowd of bureaucrats and this share of lying politicians inside this building. At the end of the day, we just want the protection of children, and they will listen, because the parents are the primary educators of children under Article 42 of the Constitution. They are the natural primary educators of children. It is enshrined in our Constitution, it is enshrined in our legislation, and they will listen one way or another. Now, opt-out, everyone is talking about this opt-out. Parents are supposed to be consulted in relation to all of this, and not only is the state guilty of an inherent failure to uphold that legislation and the Constitution, that they are contracted, by the way, they are contracted to uphold the Constitution, and that's what they must do. And at the end of the day, not only does it appear that they have failed, but they have deliberately excluded parents from this process. I don't know if any of you have seen the video that's circulating of Dr. Ellie Barnes of the UK, who came over to the INTO to tell everyone that was attending the conference, do not write to parents, she said. Do not tell them what you're doing. Do not call a meeting. And she even went as far as to say you don't want screaming parents screaming at you or something to that effect. She told our teachers to ignore the parents, and not only did she do that, but she told them to only to take their opinion into consideration if they could help the parents understand what they were doing. She said, we're doing this with or without them, help them understand. How dare she? Who does she think she is, coming over here and telling our teachers what to do in our schools and to ignore the parents? So I would ask you all to focus on that when you're going back to the schools, to please focus on the fact that your rights are being overridden. The parents are being ignored. There was no consultation. Now, they've even tried to undermine every consultation that's been done, saying it's orchestrated. Just because somebody helps you to formulate something doesn't mean to say it's orchestrated or fake. So wake up and listen to these people inside, is what I say. Now, I just want to say, I don't want to keep you any longer. You've been standing here for a long time. I wanted to mention the words of Minister Foley, which is a scare tactic, and it's really important that you share this with people. Really important. She said that if you opt out your child under Section 30, subsection 2E of the Education Act, if you opt out your child, the child may be sent to psychological services. Like, seriously? Who do these people think they are? Like, psychological services, it's not the children that need to be sent to psychological services, I can tell you. It's these absolute nut jobs that are in this building and here, because that's what they are at this stage. The lunatics are running the asylum, I'm sorry to say. The Dáil is out of control, and we're very grateful to have the likes of Matthew McGrath and other independent TDs and other public representatives speaking out. So I would say to you on the other side of the road too, we don't hate you, we're not against you. We just want the protection of our children. Children's brains do not develop until they are through puberty. And many people might not know that is Anne McCluskey, Dr. McCluskey there will be able to tell you, 24 years of age, none of us should be making any life-changing decisions. 10 years of age to 24, affected by hormones, all sorts of external factors. And at the end of the day, these are enough for children to be dealing with without introducing all this baseless ideology that has no basis in any kind of fact or biology. So I'd ask you to just do not be afraid. Minister Foley has said that they're not going to send your child to psychological services. Who do they think they are? They've been court in the morning. So stand up to them is what we say, and please keep pushing. And thank you very much for your help. And thanks to Jana and Andy, everybody that was involved in this today. I don't know if Siobhan wants to say anything. She's just here in strength. This woman works around the clock. The wee size of her. So thank you, and we'll see you. Maybe get chatting to you someday. Thank you very much. Give me a guy, Michael. Thank you.
How do I get it shorter? Let's see. Oh, Natasha, you're tall. Next, this is our last but not least speaker. We have Natasha Kavanagh has been working for 20 years as a film documentary producer, so she certainly knows media as well as anyone. She's a dear friend of mine and also on the Natural Women's Council, so I'll turn it over to Natasha. That's probably right, your right height. Yeah. Okay. And if you ever get a call from Lawyers for Justice at 11 o'clock with a great idea when they're walking the beach, sometimes don't answer. You'll end up planning a big event or something. They do work around the clock. Thanks, Jackie and Siobhan.
Hello to everyone across the road. Can you hear me? Fair play to you. Do you know the irony of trying to obstruct someone's right to freedom of expression is lost on them entirely. As Jana said, my name's Natasha. I work in documentary production, but first and foremost, I am a mother. I'm a living, breathing human woman, and my pronouns are obvious. I'll be reading off my phone because the printer wasn't my friend this morning, but sure, we'll get there. So seeking of truth has always been an innate passion of mine. And research, diligent research, as a huge portion of every project I've ever made. You can't make factual content. In fact, you can't make any form of journalism without diligent research. The term fact check was used in the documentary industry and in the journalism industry long before you would have ever heard of it on social platforms. And as I said, you can't make our content without diligent research. Without demonstrable annotated facts derived from research, it would then just be referred to as entertainment content. Or worse, sometimes deliberate propaganda. The process of onerous layers of research isn't merely to uncover the facts for credibility's sake for the content. It's also a necessary step to ensure adherence to the corporate and government standards of compliance, inclusive of a code of ethical responsibilities. Every production house, channel, broadcast or publication will have an obligation to ensure that their staff, even their freelancers, adhere to this. Fighting back against? What are you fighting for? You have the same human rights as all of us. Or are you quite sure. So let's say I rocked up here today, having lived under a rock and didn't have a background in the media industry, right? And I just heard all these people speaking here today and heard all this information for the first time. I have ADHD apparently, so I'm easily distractible. So the first thing I'd imagine, even through ignorance, I'd imagine the first thing I'd ask myself is, if all this was true, what they're saying, why isn't it on the news? And in my ignorance, I'd take to my smartphone and I'd start scrolling through mainstream journalism. I'd scroll through press releases or conferences, I'd scroll through tweets even, to see what our government representatives have to say on the matter. And sure, I'd be left stumped. Sorry, at least where I am. Am I transphobic? What does that even mean? I can't help but engage, I'm sorry, I do like to chat to people. So I'd be left stumped because all I'd have heard from ministers in relevant roles and from mainstream journalism of our nation is that the eloquent people that I've heard speaking today were nothing more than far-right, transphobic, homophobic extremists who want to ban all of LGBT reading material, who, fueled by their homophobia, harass and intimidate their fellow citizens while they're at work, who use sensationalism and panic to cause a false threat about our kids that doesn't exist, just all so they could spread hate. And I'd start to wonder what sort of event I'd even gone to. I might even come across the press conference from last week where our media minister Catherine Martin said, when speaking in the context of RTE, and I quote, "Public service broadcasting does a good for democracy and for society, and it should not be questioned. And we should never question the staff, the role of the staff in providing good journalism. Reliable, factual information is needed now more than ever," end quote. And I'd be thinking, yeah, look, there's our media minister, and she's saying that she trusts that reliable, factual information is provided to us by RT's journalism, so much so that she says we need not question it. But you know, it would still niggle at me, because the people speaking here today seemed so sure of what they had to say. Sorry, I'm not getting distracted, I swear. Seem so sure, they seem so passionate about child protection. They offered sources, some of them government and government affiliated sources. So then, I'd have a choice, wouldn't I? As a human being with a God-given mind of my own, I could seek out the information that these people have spoken about here today to see if it exists. They probably have links to it on their website even. Or I could shut my mind off to everything I'd heard today in accordance with our news and our government and accept that there is no active threat to all the children, and everyone I heard speaking today was nothing more than the mainstream media reported. Far-right thugs who hate anybody who's LGBTQIA plus and minus. Sure, what right-minded person in 2023 wouldn't want to keep a big gap between themselves and any label like homophobia or Nazi or transphobe? Should that be social suicide, wouldn't it? Somebody once said that the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. We all have choices. Regrettably, Ireland has what can only be described as a deplorable track record of heinous crimes committed against children that were not only ongoing, but that were willfully covered up. Babies in septic tanks, illegal adoption or child trafficking as it should be called. Girls kept as slaves in laundry houses, child rape. Crimes that went on for so long and with so many people in the know that there's been multiple national and international films made about it. The national shame of it. We all have choices. We can choose to accept the more palatable lie that there is no threat
and live safe in the fact that when the truth of the destruction erupts to the surface after it's caused immeasurable harm, we can throw our hands up in the air with that old familiar line, "Sure, we didn't know." Unlike the reprehensible crimes that have been committed over the past number of decades against a great number of wholly unfortunate children that should have been protected, the information you've heard today has the potential to cause harm to every single school-aged child in the country in the foreseeable future. What is stopping us from going online and reading, say, the World Health Organization standards for sexual education in Europe, for example, right? To read for ourselves their recommendations for age 0 to 4 category, advising teachings of self-pleasure. Age 0 to 4. Might this be added to the ECI syllabus for September 25 to be taught in between the ABCs and the days of the week? Or Intu's animated video created as a teaching resource on how a primary school child should be socially transitioned in a classroom and how to ensure the entire classroom go along with this. Perhaps RTE might report on today's event and call me a sensationalist. Yes! RTE, who quote the World Health Organization more times than they say good evening, might dare call me an extremist for questioning the road that O'Gorman, Foley and the likes are taking the children of this country down, while the mainstream media completely ignore the very existence of this very real information that is available to read in black and white and report on it should they choose to. So why aren't they reporting on the content of the books being recommended to children? Why aren't they reporting on the reality of the content on the curriculum changes and those curriculum changes promised over the coming years? Why aren't they willing to consult the people and have a balanced public debate on something so fundamentally important? Because they, as individual human beings, are choosing not to. And they're holding on to the mantra that they can use later on should they need to. Sure, we didn't know. Except they'd be lying. Because even in the absence of the layers of research that have surely been conducted as due process, we can reassure you all that they are privy to this information that you've heard today and its sources because we have sent it to them. In fact, as Jana mentioned, RTE's primetime were issued 8 pages of information, yet the human beings working in that production chose not to highlight any of the actual content of these books. Despite going to the effort of lighting and filming a pan shot across the cover of one of the books, a book that reads like a manual for a young vulnerable child to go online, get chatting to an adult and talk about sexually explicit stuff that they had learned in that very book. Sorry, I've lost where I was.
Well done, you're doing great.
There are politicians who created and took part in the counter-protests and even independent rallies that were advertised and championed on the mainstream media, where they shout about homophobia and Nazi youth book burning, despite being fully aware of the content they were campaigning against, because it was provided to them. There are members of the government who employ transphobia, despite, of course, being privy to the destructive, disgusting and deplorable specifications of the curriculum even before they were published. Though to use one of the current buzzwords, I'm not targeting only RTE and their political sources here. I'm calling out all mainstream journalism in Ireland for their unwillingness to print the facts of the matter and for actively and deliberately seeking to throw the public off the scent. I'm calling out the human beings who, working in the mainstream journalism, are choosing to report in accordance to the hymn sheet issued to them by the government, who are hell-bent on making Ireland the front runner for implementing globally instructed standards and frameworks to the detriment of children for reasons of personal gain.
Yes, shame on them, shame on them.
And to these people I say, what need you being come to sense but fumble in a greasy till and add the halfpence to the pence and prayer to shivering prayer until You've dried the marrow from the bone, for men were born to pray and save. Romantic Ireland is dead and gone. It's with O'Leary in the grave. And know this, judgment will have no mercy for those who have shown no mercy to others. And surely safeguarding children is the innate responsibility of every single adult living and breathing. I ask every human being, let us end the cycle of accepting the palatable lie and throwing our hands up at the fact stating, sure, we didn't know. Let us choose better. Let us resurrect romantic Ireland, where we were willing to take bullets to protect our children and grandchildren, not cower in the corner in avoidance of pathetic false labels. Should they be of no deterrent to us? Because truth, like our responsibilities under natural law, is impenetrable. Thank you. And I'm sorry I read from it. I just was trying not to get distracted.
I've been on the stage a lot of times doing these rallies, and you may have seen I've learned to be like my 5-year-old son and have selective hearing. Up in Swords, I had the dog whistles and the boombox and the dribbling and drooling and shouting and calling me a thug. At the last one at the Department of Education that Bridget organised, someone dumped water on my head, but I didn't even notice. I kept on going. So once you do this a few times, you'll have selective hearing. You won't even notice them. Okay, so this is in closing. I hope you found it very informative today. We stand here with the love we have for our children, and so many of us, including all of you, have been working tirelessly to get the information out, tirelessly to spread the awareness and highlight the risks to your friends, your neighbors, your child's teacher, and everyone you know. You are not helpless. You do have your rights. Linda just handed me something at the very end she wanted me to read out. The state recognizes the family as the natural, primary, and fundamental unit group of society, and as a moral institution possessing inalienable and imprescriptible rights, antecedent and superior to all positive law. I also ask that you look at the LGBTQ plus minus inclusion strategy 2019 to 2021. This inclusion strategy outlines the plan to sexualize and indoctrinate our children in schools and libraries under the umbrella of inclusion. The Department of Education and Health got their instructions, and they are driving this with our taxpayer money. But their juggernaut is coming off the road because we as parents and teachers are one mighty obstruction of truth, power, love, and sovereignty. I am a mother, and they will not silence me. They can abuse, threaten, throw any label they want. They will not silence me. My duty is to protect my children. Children's rights are human rights. Thank you very much. That's all, folks. We have a few thousand leaflets. If everyone here wants to get a packet, we have them packaged up in packets of 100. You could easily do 1,000 in a day. I did recently, and I also want to say a big thank you before everyone wraps up to Ross down in Cork, and Andy down in Mayo, and Anita from Cork. They are on the streets 7 days a week going into libraries and leafleting, so thanks to Andy, Ross, and Nita. I see Karen down there and everyone else I might have forgot. Thank you for your help and support.
Okay, I'm sure you all know what was going on here outside the Dáil Natural Women's Alliance and Lawyers for Justice and a few other organisations. Hello!